Welcome to another episode and another season of the MDM podcast. I'm Mike Hockett, MDM's executive editor. This episode is brought to you by our 2026 Shift Conference, set for May 12th through the 14th in Denver, Colorado. Shift is all about practical strategies for business model evolution and converting concepts into processes. As MDM and NAW's marquee spring event, Shift equips you with actionable insights, peer-driven discussions, and first access to AI applications built for distribution. Find all the event details and registration at mdm.com/shift2026. E&R Industrial is a suburban Detroit-based distributor offering a range of metalworking and other industrial supplies, primarily to manufacturing customers, and it's embarking on a new journey in the wake of being recently divested from Grainger in late 2023. E&R was part of Grainger for 10 years and is now privately owned and has new leadership in place. My guest for this episode is Joe Stevens, who became E&R CEO this past September. Joe spent nearly 25 years at Fastenal before taking the lead at Motor City Industrial until it was acquired by AFC Industries in 2023. He then led fluid sealing master distributor APG for 2 years before joining E&R. E&R has ambitious plans as the company looks to add scale through a combination of M&A and sales force expansion, and Joe's experience and perspective from both national strategics and independent growers will be vital there. Our discussion covered not only what E&R has in mind, but Joe's thoughts on the broader industry's evolution on the fronts of how much relationship selling still matters, what it truly means to be technology-enabled, and the role of vending today. Enjoy. Joe, welcome to the MDM podcast.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I just gave a very brief description of E&R Industrial in the introduction for this episode, but I think it's always good to start with a quick snapshot of our featured guest and the company that they currently represent. So, Joe, can you take us through who you are and your background, and then who E&R Industrial is and what the company looks like today in terms of its size and scale and market profile?
Yeah, happy to do so. I began my career with Fastenal. They practically raised me. Myself and five fraternity brothers started there, and they really taught me how to run a business. And so, as I moved through my career at Fastenal, I spent 25 years there. In that time period, there was no meaningful erosion in the independent distributors' market share. A little bit of trading paint, but there was no real reduction in their actual hold on the market. And as we all know, that market is very fragmented by independent distributors, and they hold on to that market share for a long period of time. And so I became obsessed with that, and I left Fastenal to do a roll up. And that's how I got involved with Motor City Fastener and, of course, the partners Key and Capital and Oakland Standard. And we bolted on some acquisitions and introduced supply chain automation tools to that customer base. And that was a great experience. But it was in that experience that I began to understand and see the powerful combination of data-driven solutions and local inventory, or if you will, local salesperson-led vendor-managed inventories. And it is truly powerful. Having that product close to the customer and actually being able to provide best-in-class technology is a great combination. And when you combine, obviously, when you combine good customer usage data with fast responding local team, you can solve almost any customer problem. And I think that's what kind of dawned on me there. We were excited about what we had done at Motor City. Ultimately, we sold to AFC, and they have done a great job with it since we sold that to them. I'm happy that they were the buyer. They continued to double down on that solutions-based selling for those employees and those customers that were impacted. I did a brief stint at APG. That's Fluid Conveyance. That was a two-step distributor. But then the opportunity for E&R came up, and that was recently that I joined them. It's been a few months now. And of course, that was post Grainger divestiture. Just a quick background, E&R began as a metalworking distributor, but like all distributors over time, they began to expand that product offering to include more MRO products. And anecdotally, when I worked at Fastenal, I would run into E&R occasionally. and it was virtually impossible to displace them within those customers. They had such a strong grip on serving the manufacturing customers they supported, and so I understand why. They have a well-built technology suite. They have E&R is operating today with proprietary crib software. Of course, we have a suite of vending solutions. We have metalworking specialists, and I think that's the more important component. Our salespeople are in market, assisting customers with product selection, and that's a key component that many independent distributors enjoy. It's the combination of the technology and that salesman-led buying process, that really got me excited about joining this team, and I'm thrilled to be here.
So I'd like to get into E&R's independence now after Grainger. E&R was acquired by Grainger back in 2013, and then 10 years later, Grainger divested the company at the end of 2023 to Paradigm Equity Partners, which is a Los Angeles-based equity firm based on acquiring companies in the lower middle market. So that means E&R is back to being an independent distributor under Paradigm. So with that, how would you describe the biggest change in E&R's operating mindset now versus when it was part of a strategic parent in Grainger?
Yeah, that's the tough question, isn't it? What matters?
Mm.
Before I dive into my answer, let me clear one thing up. Spruce River Holdings is our primary shareholder. Paradigm continues to be involved, and we are thankful for both sponsors and the financial support that they provide us. But I just want to make that clear. But back to
Yeah.
what matters. Um, Grainger is the biggest player in our industry, and they brought a tremendous amount of structure to this organization, both structure and process. And so, currently, our back office runs very professionally with modern tools to make sure that the customer experience is seamless. And we're thankful for that impact. During Grainger's hold period, they were executing their strategy. And let's be honest, I mean, it was a good strategy. It works very well. They're doing a terrific job. They were combining best in class technology with deep inventory, and they were fulfilling fast. As it relates to E&R, our value has always been helping customers, more specifically, manufacturing customers, succeed in a very dynamic environment. The American manufacturer is currently competing with the world. And so selecting the right part, getting it to the right place, and doing so at the right time is absolutely critical to their success. And so, therefore, it needs to be critical to ours. Using our technology suite and our product experts allows us to create truly custom solutions for each individual customer. And I'll go a step further and say individual users within that customer have a uniqueness to their own solution. And so that's what we've been able to do with that. The biggest shift for us, though, to answer the question, was getting the customer's needs ahead of the actual solution.
Mm.
Solving unique customer supply chain issues is where a company like E&R shines, and quite frankly, where we've spent most of our history developing. It's not just about technology; it's about using the data that technology provides to actually solve a real problem, and this is the important part, in advance of it becoming a bigger problem. You see, that's the piece that I think many people miss, is that the technology itself doesn't do anything. It just produces data. It's what you do with that data that makes the difference. Our team has embraced this. That's how they operate, and we really just need to turn them loose with these solutions and let them do what they do best.
And that's what I was going to follow up with there was now privately owned. What freedoms matter the most to E&R when it comes to capital allocation, go to market decisions, and certainly the tech investment? But I think you covered that pretty well. Anything else on that front as far as priorities now as you're privately owned?
No, that's fair. And at the risk of sounding difficult, I mean, they all matter, right? Like you uh if you want to grow, you need the capital to do it. If your go to market is not current and modern, you're not going to have much success. And so um those are all important uh components. But
Yes.
but in the early stages, more specifically, in the early stages, the thing that matters most is somewhat more cultural, right? To be successful in today's market, you have to relentlessly focus on the customer experience. It's the North Star of every other strategy, right? And so getting your customers' priorities front and center in everything that you do in this organization, that's the critical part. We all want to do things um, in our organization, but none of those matter in comparison to, are you actually solving customer problems? And so we've shifted to that.
So then getting it more into, you know, you already covered your path to E&R Industrial. You spent a significant part of your career at Fastenal and then helped scale Motor City Fastener, which became Motor City Industrial, which I was fortunate enough to visit and write a distributor profile about back in the summer of 2018. So what specifically attracted you to E&R at this moment in its evolution, coming from those large companies, these strategics that you came from? What then turned you to E&R and what they were doing that made you want to join the team?
Yeah, I've watched E&R build itself throughout my career, both at Fastenal and even post Fastenal. And I was thrilled to have the chance to, just get involved with the people that were here. Our industry saw the acquisition and the divestiture of Grainger and E&R. We all knew it was going on. It was a very well-known brand, right? And so when you think about what I've been doing with my career since leaving Fastenal, I left them to build PE-backed companies with strong brand equity and customer-centric go-to-market strategies. And E&R is the perfect fit for that skill set. And I think that it was just a really good match for what I've been trying to do in industrial distribution and what they've been doing all along.
Looking at the messaging that E&R has been putting out to the market over the last few months, and especially since it became independent again, E&R talks a lot about being a nimble, tech-enabled partner with vending, embedded teams, and integrated procurement. So, how would you define E&R's value proposition today, and how has that differed from how customers may have viewed the company 3 to 5 years ago when it was under Grainger's wing? So just what's changed, if anything at all, on that value prop for E&R?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And as I said earlier, Grainger is executing their model, right? And it works well for unplanned MRO purchases and, quite frankly, even planned. And when you're dealing in standards, they do a great job. I mean, obviously, they've grown to 17 billion, almost 18 billion dollars, and they created an environment where customers could expect to get their standard items next day. And we want to continue to be that for our customers, right? However, when you need a recommendation on what cutting tool to use, what speeder feed to use, the fit testing for safety products or specialized safety products, I should say, or anything that requires assistance from your supplier, you'll be able to get that from us. And so some customers buy from us transactionally, and some use our software to manage their crib, and some place on the continuum in between those two exists with all of our customers. But regardless, you can get the product support you expect from an independent distributor with ENR paired with the technology that matches a national supplier.
That's big, and I think the overall evolution there may have gone from E&R being that reliable fastener distributor that if you just need fasteners here and now, here's what you're gonna get, but certainly over the years, that evolution has gone to that more you can get that, but as well as this integrated partner that can solve a lot of problems beyond just product supply.
Yeah, and I don't think the market will allow you to remain specialized for very long, right? They're under tremendous pressure to provide solutions. And so it's not really a question of whether or not you want to be a one stop shop or some specialized distributor. It's a question of whether or not the market will allow you to be. They need to manage fewer suppliers, and they need to be able to get more products from sources with solutions that back them up.
I'd like to get into the vending and inventory management angle here since I know that's something E&R has a priority on. And those are two components, vending and managed inventory, that they've been around in industrial distribution for decades now by some definitions. And we continue to see distributors lean more into VMI as both a differentiator and as a way of doing more with less. So, where do you think the real growth and differentiation still exists in these models? Is it in software, data visibility, the service intensity, customer segmentation? Where is vending and managed inventory heading right now, and why is it such a priority for distributors?
Yeah, the short answer is data visibility, but let me give you a little bit more than that. I think it's safe to say that the modern distributor recognizes that supply chain technology is here to stay and it's an important part of your customer relationship. But I think it's also important to recognize that vending doesn't do anything but produce data. And what you do with that data is the next frontier. Quite frankly, it was the goal all along. But unless you fulfill that, you've really only got half of the equation, which is the technology. And so with these customer data sets, we can predict usage, failures, um, uh, changes in pattern, and we can do that in advance. And so showing customers how their supply chain moves through their organization is more important than the technology itself. It's actually that visibility of how product moves that makes you a differentiator. And we can use that data to analyze supply chains and usage patterns and actually, and for me, this is the important part, and impact them, actually change something about that. You can only differentiate yourself if you're doing something different, right? And so predictive analytics is the next phase of what all this data produces. And then ultimately, AI, where we can start to introduce those tools to these data sets and create real business intelligence that's actionable and more importantly hits the bottom line.
That's great. Well, you've signaled plans for E&R's significant sales team expansion over this next year here in 2026 and beyond as E&R really gets going on this new roadmap with yourself at the helm here. So, what kind of sales talent does E&R need to win in today's environment, which, as you just covered, continues to change rapidly? And how has that sales profile changed compared to, let's say, a decade ago?
Yeah, another great question. Intuitive. You can tell you've been into this industry for far too long. The customer expects knowledge. And so we need to continue building out our team with experienced sellers. Our ability to attract talent is truly going to be the regulator of our growth. And so the market was still evolving 10 years ago. And I think it's safe to say that the expectations for manufacturers today is that you will provide information quickly and efficiently. That's what they want. And we are fortunate to have industry veterans leading our teams. And so, as we add salespeople, we'll continue to push them, if you will, to pursue solution-based sales efforts as the market, expectation evolved with that technology and in today's environments, those customers want data. And so we still have great relationships with our customers. And I don't want to downplay the importance of relationship, but it's not enough. That relationship needs to turn into a solution that makes them more effective. Um, and so I'm going to add a little bit more there. Um, and this may be a bold statement, but it's all data now, right? And your relationship is defined by your ability to produce that data. And again, as I said earlier, real business intelligence. And so while we have these great relationships, and I'm thankful for that, and it's enjoyable to be side to side with your customers coming up with solutions, we recognize that those solutions is why they choose us. And we have to prove our value every day by continuing to provide them those data-driven decisions.
And it's that relationship dynamic. It might be the most interesting question that I'm interested to get perspective on, whether it's here on the podcast, over at a cocktail reception where there's distributors in there, is asking them. I mean, this has forever been a relationship driven industry. And if you ask anyone, they would still say it is. But given that the digital transformation almost all distributors have gone through over the last 20 years, asking them how much has that relationship changed from being, are you selling purely based on relationships versus how much is it data driven? And I'm sure everyone would say it's a hybrid somewhere in there, but yeah, I'm interested to know where they see from 100% relationship driven to 100% data driven, where on that spectrum is the selling relationship right now, and just any other thoughts there on where this is heading and how much do relationships still matter.
They do matter, but at a certain stage in that process, and I think that is the part that has kind of revealed itself in our industry over the last 10 years, and that is what that buying process looks like for an industrial customer. Because, we're our retail and consumer-led e-com efforts are emerging at the same time our industrial and commercial-led e-com efforts are emerging. And I think what we've learned is that a company is multiple people with multiple relationships um, that they have with you. And so a relationship can get you the opportunity to pitch your products and services, but that's sort of the limit of what it can do for you. The days of getting the business because you bought somebody tickets, they're just gone, and it just doesn't work that way anymore. Now, to sort of double down on what I said earlier, that relationship will get you the opportunity to present goods and services. The point I think that is different for us in today's environment is that now you have to deliver, right? The relationship's not enough. You need the relationship and a solution that actually gets them their product quicker and at a lower total cost of ownership.
Well, let's get into M&A here since I know that that's going to likely be a big priority for E&R going forward here. You've mentioned that E&R's path forward is likely to include several acquisitions per year with additional roll-up activity over time. Can you share what types of companies E&R might be targeting and what has to be true for an acquisition to make sense strategically for E&R? So just looking for some insight on the criteria there in terms of, is it more geographic versus capability, revenue scale versus cultural fit, and those other intangibles. What is this looking like for E&R?
Yeah, part of my answer is ambiguous and the other part's specific, and I got to give
Sure.
you the background on why that is. So when I first began doing roll-ups with Motor City, I was very specific and picky about what we were looking for and what would make a good fit. And then realized that the market really wasn't waiting on me to tell them what they needed to be for me to buy them. Right. And so when you're trying to do expand the geographic footprint of any company, you can't be too picky. You got to understand what's available to you at the time and how you can use that to grow. And so we are looking, and so when I give you this ambiguous answer, I'll bring it together to a specific answer, which is we're looking for customer centric distributors, right? People that are focused on providing solutions to their customers. That's the qualifier for us. We have solid infrastructure and we want to use that to help other distributors either catch up on technology or expand the existing technology that they have. We can be very flexible on geography and size, but we cannot be flexible on their go-to-market strategy, which is it needs to be a distributor that wants to solve customer problems. We're never going to be a dock-to-dock distributor. That's not what we do well, and that's not, quite frankly, what we have to offer the market. It's important for me to add that we know who we are just as well, right? And we'd be a great partner to companies that have a track record of focusing on their customers and employees. We don't want to replace an acquisition's people or their customers or even their strategies. We want to accelerate them. And so they have to be like us to begin with, where they're trying to drive solutions within the market.
Makes sense. Well, from a leadership standpoint, between your past career experience at whether it's APG, Motor City, or even back to Fastenal, you've seen both highly standardized scale and more entrepreneurial growth models. So, with that, what lessons from those previous career stops are you most intentionally applying at E&R? And maybe vice versa, is there anything you are deliberately not applying or repeating?
So I think first it starts with recognizing what Fastenal does well, right? And so they're excellent at getting close to their customers, and they have the infrastructure that allows them to respond to those customers quickly. When you contrast that with what makes an independent great, they have great market presence and responsiveness. Their inventories are local, their people are local, and so they move fast. Finding out how to preserve both is the lesson that I learned. National distributors own the standards and independents own the specials. That's not a hard and fast rule, but it is generally true.
Mhm.
Our strategy is to be both. So, because Fastenal has the scale to do so, they farm their own salespeople. We don't have time to do that. So, we want to scale quickly, and that means that we need to hire salespeople and they need to produce quickly. And furthermore, in a platform environment, We want to acquire companies and build out that way as well. So we have in this environment a much more short-term view of what we want to accomplish. And so building out long-term strategies or go-to-market strategies, that's not really applicable here. What we need to do is move quickly and make decisions quickly that respond to the market and capitalize on what we're really good at, which is that local presence.
Well, that local presence, as you noted earlier, really hinges on serving manufacturing customers, and many of them are large OEMs that are dealing with cost pressure, supply chain volatility, and reshoring decisions to, everyone's looking to become a little more domestic right now. So, with that, how are your customer expectations changing right now, and where are distributors underestimating that shift into where customer expectations are changing?
Well, I talked about it earlier, and I'm going to bring it up again because I'm obviously convinced that I'm right. Data and predictive analytics, and ultimately AI, is really where those customers are going to start demanding more tools from us, right? And so we all pitched that supply chain automation would improve the American manufacturer, and it did. But what we do with that data is where we're really going to start making differences in those customers. And I'll go a step further and say what you do with the data is the secret sauce. That's really where you begin to create value, and the days of conceptual savings are gone. We need to hit P&Ls. We need to actually lower cost, and that standard has changed over time.
That's great perspective there. And then getting more into the technology side of thing here, almost all distributors that we talk with, they talk about how they're tech enabled, they're tech forward. What they base their decisions on. But certainly that can mean different things from one distributor to the next. For some of them, it might just mean applying one automation tool to eliminate some manual order entry. And for others, it might mean a full scale tech and data driven culture where they are really leveraging their ERP, CRM, and a lot of other tools to drive efficiencies forward. So, looking at E&R, where do you think technology really creates separation today, and where might it just become table stakes at this point and a new standard?
Yeah, and I'll kind of double down on the last thing we talked about. VMI is now some combination of salesperson managed and technology everywhere. There's some form of it, right? And vending is certainly table stakes, but it's table stakes at medium and large manufacturers where they have the volume to actually justify it. Our industry has produced all of this data, as I said earlier, over this last decade, and we have to glean insight from that data to be different. If we're actually going to start creating a separation from our competitors, then our data and our information that we provide our customers needs to be different and more advanced than what they're currently getting. And so the the important part of this is that the manufacturers have caught up with us as distributors, right? And
Mm.
so they are expecting to see you tie out how you're saving them money, and conceptualizing how vending will make them more streamlined. It's just not acceptable anymore. It's got to come down to a model where you're showing consumption reduce over time and you can predict it out over time. And so I think that's really where things are kind of shifting now is that the customers caught up with all of us on what we promised that our industry would provide. Now we actually have to provide it. And the data is the key to that.
Yeah, a lot of pressures there. All right. Well, then, looking at what success means for E&R over these next 2 to 3 years and what that looks like for the company, I'm guessing it's a combination of both scale, culture, operational efficiencies as you continue to grow this platform. But any more color you can shed here on what does success look like for E&R over these next couple of years?
I get that question a lot from both internal team members and external team members. And so I'm going to give you the answer I give them. Our success is really measured one customer at a time, right? We want to do all these things. We want to acquire companies. We want to expand our salesman presence. We want to provide data-driven solutions to our customers. But our measuring stick needs to be providing a better customer experience in the markets that we serve than the competition, right? We need to differentiate ourselves above and beyond what they can get elsewhere in the market. And that target or that goal comes down to one thing. Did you make the customer more effective than they were had they not met you? Right. And so if we are measuring success that way, one customer relationship at a time, then the ultimate measurement for that would be market share. Did you expand your market share? Did more people choose to buy from you? And I think as we move into this next chapter in E&R's growth, that's the sacred tenet, if you will, that we're customer focused, providing actual solutions. And we're going to double down on that effort and continue to pursue that, at least while I have influence over it.
Well, that's excellent. And that does it for our planned questions here. But before we sign off, is there anything else about E&R that you think our audience of distribution executives should know, or just any other parting thoughts you have for them?
I would say this: the market is changing rapidly, right? And so it changed a lot over the last couple of decades that we were all involved in the market, myself at least. And as we move into this next frontier, I think that all of the excitement that we've all generated, kind of doubling down on what I've said throughout this podcast, all the excitement that we've generated just created an expectation. And now it's time for our industry to start providing real business intelligence. And E&R is in a position that we expect to be able to do that.
Well, Joe, it's been great to get to know you and E&R Industrial a little bit better. So, Joe, thanks once again for joining the MDM podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the MDM podcast. Like what you just heard? You can find all of our past episodes at mdm.com/podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.